Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inshallah, today we will continue our journey with Surat Al-Ra'd. Today is September 25th, Thursday. And I would like to ask our audience if someone can share with us what was the main last halaqah. And I would like to see if you could share. I was not here last halaqah, so I really want to know. So, sisters, any of you could summarize the takeaway points that you got from last halaqah, inshallah. I see three sisters besides Sister Yamina.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I'll go in the end.
So, what was your takeaway points from last halaqah?
Basically, the verse was very clear that if you look around in your environment and see all the ayats, and you will find that nobody else except Allah is the one who has created. None of the false gods can create any of those things. So logically, one should follow, this, that if Allah is the only one, then they should worship him,
Yes.
But there was a point Sister Yamina was mentioning, which was very deep, about the cause and effect, right?
Yes.
That there was a debate, I think in the 11th, 12th century between Imam Ghazali and others, that the fire is not the agent, it's the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which is the agent. And the philosophers, they have a different view that for the fire, you have to call it a fire because it burns. It is the natural law that the fire won't be fire, if it doesn't burn. So they believed in, that you cannot call the fire as, because it's inanimate, so it's not the, its capabilities to burn, its nature is to burn. And Imam Ghazali was debating that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's the one who causes, everything to burn or not to burn. He's the one who makes all the rules, and he's the one who whenever he wants, he can break the rules. I think that was the thing which I understood.
So, mashallah, so it was like taking the focus away from laws of nature, because people keep saying this is the law of nature, and bringing them back to what Allah created things to be. That seemed to be the focus.
Yeah, the point is very deep, actually. Then there is another problem that, if you don't call fire with the nature of it, like, it burns, then the miracles only happen because we know that fire burns, and when it doesn't burn, that's the miracle, right? So it's really very complex issue, I don't know which side to take. I have my own understanding, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has ordered, who is actually, it's not that he made it 50,000 years ago, the earth and all the rules, and he's not engaged now. He's still engaged, and he's in full control even now, because he's doing he's mudabbir, he's still the mudabbir. Everything is under control, and whenever and however he wants, he can break those rules. So that was the bottom line. But the kuffar, they think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, and then he's not connected, he's not sustainer, he's not, all the asma sifat after creation, khalq, and then, he's the musawwir, he's the mudabbir, and all those things they don't believe, and we do believe that he's the one who is micromanaging our lives, and we are totally dependent on him.
Assalamu alaikum. If I may also add here, that
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
one of the things that is important for me is that I go through this forgetfulness in my life as well, even though I may say God is the creator of everything and sustainer of everything. In everyday life, things are happening, and I oftentimes, when I'm in a state of ghafla, forgetfulness, I don't behave as if this is coming from the one who has absolute wisdom and compassion and knowledge. Things happen and I'm like, why is this happening? I don't deserve this, or like, this is nonsense and it shouldn't be happening. And from personal life to even uh, things that maybe my toaster stopped working, so many relationship with my child, with my husband, with people, and then it also includes natural world as well, that we get used to thinking that this is water, and water does this. This is fire, fire does this, and so on. So it is a great reminder that the Quran keeps bringing us back, as we discussed last time, is in verse 16, that brings us back to this questioning. Okay, we may forget. Okay, we may think things are happening just like that on their own somehow. And then the Quran asks us, well, can these things that you think are accomplishing things, are they able to help themselves? That water or that person, whatever it is that you think is in charge for that particular thing, can it really be in charge? It can't even help itself. Does it know you? So that verse that we discussed last time was almost just a great formula to check it out. If there is something that we tend to think, oh, this is doing it, this is accomplishing it, it's from water, or it's from my husband, or it's from my neighbor, it's from myself, I'm smart, this, that. The Quran is saying, like, rethink. If you think you're doing it yourself, but you can't help yourself, you don't even know how your brain works. If I say I'm smart, I did it because I'm smart. I don't even know how my brain cells work. How could I be the real author behind this thing? So that is a little disappointing for our ego, maybe a lot disappointing, but it's refreshing for the soul and the heart, because alhamdulillah, I'm not in charge. Alhamdulillah, somebody else's choices don't shape my life. Alhamdulillah, I'm not at the mercy of these natural causes or personal causes, other human beings. So it's a big relief as well. Just want to note that.
I like the idea that it at the end there is a reason why we need to know this, and the benefit is that it's comforting to the soul, that the soul needs to be reminded about this. Otherwise, the soul becomes in a state of irritation or state of despair, because it loses focus. So we need this, and that's why, like, the soul needs it, is our guide to doing all of this. Subhanallah. Anyone else wants to add to these two beautiful entries? May Allah give you the barakah of listening to things and understanding them, and then inshallah making them part of your life. And then وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ, and also like sharing them, so not holding them in, I guess.
The other thing is
Just wanted to
okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to add one more thing that I wanted to say last time, but we were running out of time. And that was Sister Isra, why is it not possible to say that, for instance, God gave fire the capacity to burn. Now it's burning on its own. But of course, initially God gave it the power to burn. And I wanted to say that this may be a statement as a shorthand, but if we look at it very carefully in the Quranic approach, then it's a false statement, because if something can subsist or exist by itself for a second, or for any finite amount of time, then that thing doesn't need God. Why do we need to say, well, it came from God? Why? If I can genuinely witness that fire can burn on its own right now, or for a limited amount of time on its own, that somebody else started it before. I don't know the beginning. What I see is fire is burning right now, and it has the capacity to burn by itself. It doesn't need anything else. So why bring God into the picture? And that's why many people who are questioning in some of the superficial approaches to faith, they say, well, why did you bring God into the picture? I see a world that's acting on its own. Why do we have to go to the beginning? And the Quran is saying, no, look now. And that's why Sister Yamina was saying, the Quran keeps talking about in present tense, which interestingly in some translations get translated as past tense. But it's not talking about the first rain. It says we send down the rain. We bring out the plants. We give life to earth. So it's a present tense because if we look at it carefully with the Quranic light, that the things are actually containing evidences, signs that they are not agents that at that moment. When the fire is burning, we ask the question, do you know how to burn? Do you know how to apply a different formula to each chemical? Do you know how to convert chemicals one into another, something into ash, and so on? So Sister Yamina was highlighting that reasoning that no, if we look at carefully, we can witness that fire cannot be burning by itself right now. And that reasoning, that witnessing, that seeing the sign and evidence in nature right now brings us to this one source that must be sustaining every moment. And that's what's called in classical Islamic theology as continuous creation. That yes, there are levels of creation and so on, but at the same time, within that ibda, within that insha, there's ibda. Within that stage levels of development, there's also when a baby is going through stages. In 9 months, it's a stage-by-stage development, and within it, there's continuous creation. That babies can sustain every second.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
That's all for me. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Dr. There was another point that Yamina was asking us, all the, with the verse, with the logical conclusion that we induced from it, that is that the beginning or the end? And I reflected on this the whole week, and I thought that was a very good question, because what happens, we take things for granted, and we know the physical laws and all that, and we get into the trap of not directly thinking that this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's doing it. We get caught up in other things, the other details, and we forget, and we take things for granted, and can happen. Like, for example, these days, you watch so many shows on nutrition and all that, and they tell you all the things, micromanagement of your diet and micronutrients and this and that. And the thing is, I get tied up with that, but it's basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all the prophets, they ate very simply, very simple diet, one or two things, and mashallah, they did so well, performed so well and all that, and we are taking so much care of our diet, thinking that diet will, and wasting our time. And I think I was thinking about pondering over that it's basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's doing it, and we give, the asbab, we give all the credit to the asbab. So we should look around and, be constantly in touch, because it's very easy to fight and get caught up with the rules and the physical rules and the mechanisms of things and all that in this age, especially of technology and, the big knowledge about physical stuff. So that's what I reflected last week on it.
Shall we start?
Yes, and mashallah, both you and Isra have Very practical point. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We now ask Sister Yamina, inshallah, to lead us into the next step of the journey. Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina, for leading us in this step. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Thank you so much for the comments and the summary. They were very enlightening. I really enjoyed them. Thank you. Jazakuma Allah khair, inshallah. So as the sister just mentioned, we've spent the last two lectures, actually, not only last time, reflecting on ayah 16. And this ayah is like all the ayat of the Quran are just like treasures, and we just touched a little of those and enjoyed them, and inshallah still benefiting from them. So last time especially we focused on the last part of the ayah, which was أَمْ جَعَلُوا لِلَّهِ شُرَكَاءٌ خَلَقُوا كَخَلْقِهِ فَتَشَابَهَ الْخَلْقُ عَلَيْهِمْ قُلِ اللَّهُ خَالِقُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. And we stopped there, but actually it carries on. It says قُلِ اللَّهُ خَالِقُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ الْوَاحِدُ الْقَهَّارُ. So we did conclude, as we were just reminded, that indeed all creation indicates that there is one single creator of all. So we can confirm, if we look at the creation and realize that they're actually signs, and look at them reflectively, not taking things for granted without questioning anything, then we can confirm with a satisfied heart that indeed Allahu khaliqu kulli shay, God is the creator of all things. But the ayah actually ends up with Allahu khaliqu kulli shay wa huwa al-wahid al-qahhar. And I last time I stopped there because I thought it was just too overwhelming. And these names of God, Al-Wahid Al-Qahhar, appeared in Surat Yusuf alayhi salam, if you remember, in ayah 39. And then that time I had shared with you how for a while I couldn't really see the beauty in the name Al-Qahhar. I mean, I could see the awe and the jalal, the majesty. But like the beauty, the rahmah, after all, they are all Isma al-Husna, they are all beautiful names. Till I realized, in reading ayah 39 in Surah Yusuf actually, how beautiful this name is, Al-Qahhar. And what attracted my attention actually was that it's always mentioned together with Al-Wahid. It's always Al-Wahid Al-Qahhar. And the one, Al-Wahid is the one. So meaning that there is only one Qahhar, and that Qahhar is our merciful and generous Rabb. So since God, who is merciful, who is generous, who is loving, is the Qahhar, the subduer, the prevailing, the one who has authority over everything, the one who controls everything, the one who is in charge, the only one who is in charge, then all is fine, as Isra just reminded us, because that means that nothing and no one else is Qahhar. And that is so reassuring, so comforting for the soul. In the beginning, the ego is like, what do you mean? Like the ego wants to be in charge, but in fact, alhamdulillah, that we are not in charge, because deep down, I know that I can't take care of my life or anything around me. And there is also the other side of it, is that if Allah is the only Qahhar, is the only one in charge, then I'm not at the mercy of anyone else. And so this is very relieving, very reassuring and comforting for the heart, for the soul, for the human soul. So in a sense also, knowing God as Wahid al-Qahhar confirms and establishes Tawheed al-Rububiyyah in our hearts. When we talked about genuine Tawheed, there is Tawheed of al-Uluhiyyah, knowing that there is only one God. And Tawheed al-Rububiyyah is deeper when you know the Rabb is one. And the Rabb usually is what is taking charge, what is producing and controlling things around us in our life and outside. So that's where the problems start. It's not easy to feel in our heart that Rububiyyah, one Rabb. It seems like things are happening on their own. It seems like what my needs and desires and wants are tied to so many causes and many things, and as though those things were somehow, in my own perception, of course, only, we tend to perceive them as independent and separate, disconnected from the only Rabb. And so they start becoming like small Rabbs in our life, including ourselves, which is a source of lots of pain and fear and anxiety in our life. And so this process of Tawheed itself, the word in Arabic, Tawheed is an ing word. It means unifying, making one. So it is itself a process, and it's a long process. It's one thing to understand intellectually, it's another thing to actually be, to know in one's heart, to have that certainty, to have no doubt, to surrender, to trust fully. And sometimes we go into that state and forget and go out of it. And so we have to practice it so much that it becomes our, inshallah, our constant state of being. So we are always in the presence of our Rabb. And so because it's not so easy to live with that knowing, with that certainty that God is the creator of all things, and therefore he is al-Wahid al-Qahhar, which also means that we interact with everything as ayat of his rububiyyah. We always think, from our perspective, that's what it means. So in order to make this reality, this awesome reality, actually awesome in the sense that actually if you stop and think about it, you're in awe, in sajda, we prostrate in front of this reality. Subhanallah, like, can you imagine living our life with this consciousness, with this awareness? And so you see the rahmah, and in the next ayah, there is so much rahmah to make it more accessible to us. In the next ayah, our compassionate Rabb uses some metaphors. And so the next ayah, it says, he sends down water from the sky, and riverbeds fill up and flow, each according to its measure. And the stream carries on its surface a growing layer of scum, the froth-like foam. A similar kind of scum comes from what they melt up in the fire in order to make ornaments and tools. This way, God set forth the parable of truth and falsehood. As for the foam, for the scum, it is quickly swept away, but that which is beneficial for people remains in the earth. This is how God set forth metaphors or similitudes, it's said here in the translation. أنزل من السماء ماء فسالت أودية بقدرها فاحتمل السيل زبدا رابيا ومما يوقدون عليه في النار ابتغاء حلية أو متاع زبد مثله كذلك يضرب الله الحق والباطل فأما الزبد فيذهب جفاء وأما ما ينفع الناس فيمكث في الأرض كذلك يضرب الله الأمثال. And the next ayah, it says, for those who have responded to their Rabb, there is the best, there is Husna. And for those who do not respond to him, even if they owned everything on the earth and twice as much, they would offer it to ransom themselves. They would want to offer it to ransom themselves. For a most terrible reckoning awaits them, and their destination is hell. What a miserable abode. So in Ayah 17, when it says God gives the simile of the truth and false, كَذَلِكَ يَضْرِبُ اللَّهُ الْحَقَّ وَالْبَاطِلَ. A simile is a kind of metaphor. I mean, not all metaphors are similes, but simile is a metaphor. It's a figure of speech that involves the comparison of one thing with another thing of a different kind, to make it more visual, to make it easier. Like we say, as brave as a lion. And the use of metaphors, like in this area, and they're used a lot in the Quran, they make the description clearer, and also they make it more accessible to the audience mind. And not only to the mind, but also it's appealing to our senses, imagination, and also to emotions, because there is something, you can almost like see it happening in front of you, and so you're more involved with it and you can feel it, and so it becomes more vivid. And that's why usually metaphors are used as a tool for trying to comprehend something that cannot be comprehended totally. So you are actually making it closer to comprehension, more accessible. And in this area, there is a beautiful and very vivid simile of truth and or of truth and falsehood, haqq and batil. So it says God sends water, sends down water from the sky, and then valleys or riverbeds flow with water according to their measure. So from one aspect here, water represents or is an indication to the revealed truth and wisdom, the hikmah of the Quran. And the sound's heart, the qulub al-salima, qalb al-salim, bears the truth and the wisdom, that Quranic wisdom, in proportion to their measure. Like a big riverbed will flow with lots of water, and a small one with little water. And so it is with the hikmah of the Quran. It depends on our hearts, how much open they are. It depends on our intention to surrender to our Rabb. And if we have no intention to surrender, then they bear the scum and filth of falsehood due to our misinterpretation, false belief, unchecked false beliefs and delusions that in this context, for instance, things other than God can produce anything of their own. And what is significant here, another point, is that the scum appears on the surface when water is flowing. When water is actually flowing, then the scum goes up with the flow, with that motion of the water, it goes up, and so it can be seen. And so it can be thrown out on the sides of the river, or it can be cleaned out. So the scum, those fears, those anxieties, those misguided beliefs, those shirky beliefs, false beliefs, we can become aware of them when the water of hikmah, when the hikmah of the Quran is always flowing in our life. How does it flow? When there is always tafakkur and tadabbur fi ayatillah, both the Quranic ayat and the creational ayat. And so when the truth flows in that way in our heart, then that the filth of falsehood will be, inshallah, apparent. We will become aware of it, and then we can ask for it to be eliminated and purified bi-idhnillah from our hearts. And inshallah, as a result, our hearts will be purified. And that is why constant dhikr, remembrance of God, is so much emphasized in the Quran. There is an ayah in the Quran that says, وَمَنْ يَعْشُ عَنْ ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ نُقَيِّدْ لَهُ شَيْطَانًا فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ. Anyone who chooses to remain blind to the remembrance of the Rahman. Rahman is the name of God, but it's also one of the main names of God. In Surat Maryam, for instance, it appears so many times. To him, we assign a shaitan, and that shaitan becomes his other self, his qareen. Like, it becomes like a pseudo self. Instead of becoming myself, the shaitan becomes the one who decides everything. When this happens, when I forget dhikr al-Rahman. So when I'm not in that state of conscious gratitude and seeing the Rahmah everywhere, automatically I am in a state of, there is no neutral state. I'm in a state of forgetfulness, in a state of ghafla, and therefore I don't see al-Wahid al-Qahhar. I see everything else as creating, as being in charge, as having the say in my life. Astaghfirullah. So here in this ayah, when it says فَاحْتَمَلَ السَّيْلُ زَبَدًا رَابِيًا, when the flood bears away the scum that mounts, that flows up, that goes up to the surface of the water that ran down the riverbeds, this is the first metaphor. And there is a second one. And in the second one, metal is purified from the scum and froth of impurities through fire. Up to here, is there any question or comment or something you'd like to share?
Dr. Yamina, I actually do have a question. So when we're talking about the scum being like a misguided belief, how can I be aware if I'm being misguided?
Mm-hmm. Here it says when the water flows, the scum goes up. It means when the wisdom, when we were reading and reflecting on this ayah 16, for instance, of Surat Al-Ra'd, then when we genuinely not just read it and pass through, but when we genuinely read it, go out and compare the creation. Is there anyone other than God creating? Well, we all realize that yes, in our perception, it seems like lots of things are creating things. And we gave the example of the fire, for instance, and we had example of medicine and water and so many things in our lives. Before we had given the example of money. And so we realized that this ayah is not talking about some disbelievers somewhere. The Quran is, Allah is speaking to me here and now, and I see that, oh, the moment I open my heart to the guidance and to the wisdom of the Quran, if I really genuinely read and reflect and go and actually perform the ayah, go and actually observe and contemplate the creation, where are the ayat, then they will surge. It will be like a flow. The flow of the wisdom of the Quran is like water, and all those hidden shirki beliefs and fears and misperceptions, and they will all come up, and I will be able to see them, and I will be, oh my God. So I will make istighfar, astaghfirullah, and let them, because they're like bubbles, like foam. They don't have any substance to them. I realized then that they have no substance, but before, because I was not aware of them, they actually rule our life. How I feel about the world, how I interact with the world, who I am is what I believe. But because I never questioned them, I didn't realize that they were just empty bubbles, false. They didn't have any truth in them. So it's when I open my heart, when my intention is to surrender to my Rabb. And so I surrender. Part of the surrendering is actually to practice the ayah, to actually perform it, to actually go and reflect. Not just read it and close the Mus'haf, but actually go and, as we were told, Sister said she spent the whole week reflecting on the meaning of the ayah. Then you start seeing all the scum coming out, And inshallah, the heart will be purified of all those false disbelief. And then we realize how much we need istighfar, and also all that istighfar will lead to hamd. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah that he is al-wahid al-qahhar.
Yamina, can I ask a linguistic question?
Yes.
I have always wondered in the Quran that the Asmaul Husna, they come as pair most of the time, except a few places like in, I think, Surah Hashar, it's a whole bouquet of, but only Allah and Ar-Rahman comes alone. Most of the time it's Wahidul Qahhar, like, Alimul Hakim, and so do you know why they come in pairs? Or most of the time, both the Asmaul Husna, they come only in two sets. One pair. Most of the time, I have always wondered, but I don't know if there's a reason or not.
It's we can't know all of the wisdom in it, but one of it is, for instance, Alim and Hakim, mostly, and rarely, few times, it's Hakimun Alim. Hikmah comes before, but usually because Hikmah requires ilm, right? Like someone cannot have wisdom if he doesn't know. You first have to have the knowledge, then that knowledge has to be practiced wisely, so it leads to wisdom. So because they're all related, actually, not only those pairs among themselves, all the names, each name is related to all the names because they all point to one single being. They are all the names of God, of Allah. So each one requires all of them, and each one points to all of them. Like for instance, it depends also how we look at them. And in the Quran, it depends on the context where God describes himself as Alimun Hakim. It doesn't mean that he's only Alimun Hakim, but the context emphasizes that aspect, that name, that quality of God. Actually, it depends on how because ilm, for instance, ilm and hikmah, knowledge and wisdom, are mercy at the same time. They are rahmah. So we can say that all of them are at the same time.
So, they're complementary. Like, until unless you are Hakim, people may have knowledge, but then I'm not talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm giving an example from human beings that, if they know a lot of things, but if they don't practice hikmah, then it's not beneficial. So it's complementary in some points, but
and also in like when we were in Surat Yusuf, it mentioned hikmah before ilm, because those who have hikmah will also will also have more ilm. If you live with what you know, you will learn. You will be. You will have access to more knowledge. So the more hikmah you have, the more knowledgeable you will be, because that's sunnatullah. That's how Allah gives ilm to the one who is open to hikmah. To the muhsinin, actually, he gives the hikmah to the muhsin, according to Surat Yusuf. So here there is a when it comes to the divine names, the Ismail Husna, it's just so infinite. The wisdom attached to them is, we only have been given very, very little, very little knowledge, and inshallah we'll be grateful for that, so that may Allah give us more, inshallah. So there is a second parable in this area, and it is about, it says, when metal is heated with fire to make adornments and tools, foam or scum also rises to the surface of these melting metals, just as in the case of water. And this is also a very powerful metaphor. And from one aspect, I'm sure you may think of others, and please share with us if you can think of something else. But it reminds us that the hardship that we endure is God's way, is one of God's way of burning up the burning off, maybe you can say, the impurities in us, so that our hearts can be refined, can be purified. And that's why in the tradition, usually hardship is referred to as rahmah in disguise. And we're reminded in the Quran, this purified heart, this sound heart, this Salim heart, Qalbun Salim. Salim is both purified and healthy. And healthy here is healthy with wisdom, with the right belief. It hasn't been corrupted. It's not sick. It's not evil. So it has both health-wise and also goodness-wise Salim. And that's why in the Quran it says إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهُ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, when it's talking about who will enter Jannah. It says nothing will help you, nothing will be of avail except those who come to God with a sound heart. So this sound heart is very, very important. There are also hadith about the sound heart, like when the heart is sound, everything else is okay. So in this second metaphor, we're told, that
Dr. Yamina, could you give us the verse number for that coming to Allah with a pure heart?
Just a second.
If you have it.
I think it's 26:89, but you need to check it.
27:9.
26:89.
26:89.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
So in the second metaphor, it's about the metal being melted. And you probably know roughly, I don't know exactly, I mean, we learned it at school, but I just don't really remember. But usually we were told that metals are extracted from their ore. So for instance, if when iron is found in the earth, it's in an ore form. It's not pure. And in that ore, iron is there, deposited there as iron oxide. And you don't want the iron oxide. You want to get rid of the oxygen. So the iron ore is heated to very high temperature. And then so until the iron inside the ore melts. And then it's separated from the oxygen. The oxygen actually combines with carbon monoxide, and then the carbon monoxide becomes carbon dioxide, which is a gas, and so it can evaporate. And they use something, maybe limestone, I don't know now, maybe they use something else to remove the acidic impurities from the ore. And so the impurities, actually, they form a scum on the surface of the molten iron. And this way they can be cleaned up. They can be get rid of, they be, how do you call that? Discarded. And so in Ayah 17, the second metaphor uses this imagery of melting metal. So the truth is like precious metal, which benefit people. And falsehood is like the impurities which are derived from or cleaned up from extracting the metals. And these impurities are, it says here, of no benefits, just like falsehood. It doesn't benefit anyone. So it seems like water, the water metaphor is a sign to the truth from the ayat in the Quran and the ayat in the creation, because when we read the ayat in the Quran and perform them, then we're going to read the Quran together with the creation, the Quranic ayat together with the creational ayat. And so what comes to our heart, if it is open, if we have the intention to surrender to our Rabb, is like it will flow like water and clean up all the filth there. And the truth here, for instance, is that God is the only creator of everything, and therefore He is the Al-Wahid Al-Qahhar, He's the only subduer, the only one who is in charge, who controls every single thing. And the fire is assigned to, it seems to be more, because it's fire, because it burns, to the vicissitudes of life, you know, the things that are more painful, things that are not easy to go through, they are harder. They are also ayat, takwiniya, creational ayat, and they purify the sound hearts. So for the hearts that are not sound, they can make them rebel or complain or ungrateful, but they purify the sound hearts by bringing up to the surface all those fears of ours, you know, our fears and anxieties and doubts. Those are the impurities, because those fears and those doubts and those anxieties, well, let me say it this way, the fears and the anxieties are there because of our doubts, because we have not fully surrendered to the Al-Wahid Al-Qahhar. And so when we go through an experience like something hard, and we have all those fears and anxieties, we are given the opportunity to renew, if we can say, our surrender and tawakkul, our trust in God as Wahid Al-Qahhar, as our only Rabb. So it's the opportunity to clean up and let go of those fears, anxieties, by remembering again that I'm feeling what? I have one Rabb. He is in charge of everything, and He is powerful over everything, and He is all compassionate, and He is all knowing and all wise, and He's the one who gave me this desire for goodness. I wouldn't know what's bad and good had He not created me with that sense. So what am I so scared about? So even that fear becomes an ayah taking me back to God, seeking help from God, making istighfar and repenting and going back to seeking His help and His rahmah. So even our anxieties and fears and worries become signs that take us back to Him, and take us back to that state of ubudiyah, and take us back to that state of prostration and gratitude that, oh, alhamdulillah, suddenly I remember that all is well, and I feel that sense of relief.
Sister Esma, you were quoting a verse when I disconnected from Zoom.
Yeah, it was 15:21, Surah Hijr, sorry, Surah Hijr 21. Inna min shay illa indana khaza'inahu wa ma nazzalahu illa bihadri ma'loom. You know, this is in connection with the verse we just did, 16 also, and it connects with, I mean, that's actually the bottom line of Tawheed, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of everything, and, you know, nobody can, He's micromanaging everything. Oh yeah, it's 15:21.
So it defies the understanding that God has created things and let them on their own. He owns everything, and He's only revealing little by little as needed.
Yeah, the measure is very important, because, you know, Wahid al-Qahhar, I think the connection between the two would be if there were many gods like Quraysh believed, then there will be mass confusion. There won't be any measure of things. Everything will be chaotic. One God will do this, the other will do this. So this this ayah points to absolute tawheed. That it's finely tuned. Everything is so finely tuned. Only one God can do it.
And also bringing it back to what Sister Yamina was saying, our doubts leading us into anxieties and fears. It's this being unclear about there's only one source, like the treasures of everything is with Allah, as the verse is saying. So the source of all beauty, all power, all blessing, everything is with Allah. So why am I then so worried? Why am I then so afraid of things that I shouldn't be afraid of? So it really is connected. It brings us back to that notion that we have to separate the scum from the real thing. So with that, maybe we can, come back to Sister Yamina.
Basically, the fine tuning shows that there is only one fine tuner.
Mm-hmm. Here, the one, when we say the only one is also 100%. If you write 100%, it equals 1. So usually the primary addressee of the Quran is rather than the kafir, is more the mushrik, the one who believes in God, but the heart is not still attached to other things as well. And it's us, ourselves. So when we say ikhlas, which is 100%, purely, fully, wholly, one, only one, as opposed to 80% or something. In our life, it seems like we believe in God, but of course it doesn't exist. It's only in it's our illusory perception of the world. In reality, 100% everything is happens through God's command, kun fayakun, and everything is assigned to Him, and everything is clearly acting under His control. However, in our perception, when we are not aware of it, it seems like it's not fully 100%. So I personally believe that we need to emphasize this, because otherwise we will be always reading for the disbeliever. The disbelievers are not reading the Quran. The Quran is for me, for us, for the believers to complete their belief, to renew their belief, to live with that belief, to make that belief not only an information, but also a knowledge from the heart, to make it wisdom, to live as a muhsin, not only as a Muslim, who is a mu'min and who is a muhsin, not someone who surrenders, who believes and acts on that belief, lives with that belief. It means that belief became how I view the world. It became who I am. I am a abd. It means I am a abd means I perceive everything as an activity of rububiyyah. But do we perceive really everything as an act of rububiyyah? Personally, no. And sometimes it takes me that pain to, that pain of going through the worries and the fear and the anxiety, to tell myself, what are you doing, Yamina? And then that brings me back to astaghfirullah, to again, like, come to your senses, as if, and remember, I am a abd, I have a Rabb. What are you so worried about? It means in that moment when I'm worried, when my heart is full of anxiety and fear and of things I shouldn't be so fearful about, it means in that moment I am in a state of ghafla. I'm disconnected from that rububiyyah. So this is really we're reading this for us. not for others primarily. I mean, what's the point of reading for the others? We can only read it for ourselves. And then we ourselves, not only through our words, but inshallah, through our way of being, will help others to find their way to the source, their way to healing, inshallah, because this is a healing of the hearts, a healing of the souls, a healing from those false beliefs and falsehood that creep, that are there. They've been there maybe for so long and we take them for granted. That's why we don't see them as false beliefs. There's so many of them in us. And it's only when that water, the flood of water of the wisdom of the Quran comes in, that truth comes in, that the false beliefs start floating on the surface, and we say, what are these? And then only then we can see them and become aware of them, inshallah. And this is very important, because look at what the next ayah says. Those who practice what they've been taught, what we've been taught so far, those who allow their hearts to be filled with wisdom and purify their hearts of those false shirki beliefs, they will find that all is well. They will find al-husna. They will live in a state of ihsan. They will be muhsins. They will be taught the interpretation of events, ta'wil al-ahadith, as ayat to the beautiful names, al-asma al-husna, like Yusuf alayhi salam in Surat Yusuf, which was the surah before, right before this surah. And this surah, we said, was explaining to us the unexplained parts of Surat Yusuf. And those who refrain, those who do not respond to their Rabb, it says there is nothing for them, because from their perspective, all the goodness that they benefited from in this life is in itself impermanent, perishing. And so when the veils in Yawm al-Din, the day of judgment, when all the veils are lifted, which means when no one can delude themselves anymore, then it will be clear to all that God and only God is the creator of all things, that He is al-Wahid al-Qahhar. And so everything else is like a shadow, like a mirage. You know, there is that ayah in the Quran which says, وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَعْمَالُهُمْ كَسَرَابٍ بَقِيعَةٍ يَحْسَبُهُ الظَّمَآنُ مَاءً حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَهُ لَمْ يَجِدْهُ شَيْئًا وَوَجَدَ اللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ فَوَفَّاهُ حِسَابَهُ وَاللَّهُ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ. It says, those who deny the truth, those who do not see the truth. Remember, denying the truth was denying not being aware that things are ayat. Well, lots of moments of my life go through like, it's not my intention. However, we said to be in shirk, I don't have to intend to be a mushrik, but I have to intend to be a muwahhid in order to not be a mushrik. So someone doesn't have intend to fail the class, but he has to intend to pass. And if he doesn't pass at the end, he can't say, but I never wanted to fail. Okay, but that's not enough. I'm sorry, you had to do something about it. And so it is with us. So it says, though, the one that says everything is like a mirage, it says those who deny the truth, their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. The thirsty thinks it's water, it looks like water, until when he approaches it, he finds that it was nothing. And instead, he finds that God has always been present with him and that he will pay him his account in full, for God is swift in reckoning. And he will pay the account in full in both ways, although he gives us manifold in goodness and gives us only what we deserve when it comes to evil. And the last ayah, the next ayah in Surah Al-Ra'd, ayah 18, is just beautiful. It says, those who respond to their Rabb, there is the best. There is لِلَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ الْحُسْنَى. And for those who do not respond to him, even if they owned everything on the earth and twice as much, they would offer it to ransom themselves. They will be in such a desperate situation that even if they had everything, they will want to give it to ransom themselves, but it would be too late, because the fact is that falsehood has nothing to offer. And so if you cling to falsehood, if you have all these dreams and all this desire, I have to have this and this and the money and the career and what people say and how I look and my image and all fame and whatever we can call all these false beliefs. They could be small, they could be big, but at the end they are all like scum and they are all like bubbles, like foam. There is no reality to them. So they will have nothing. And that in itself, that the destination is hell. That is what hell is, being deprived of Allah's rahmah, being deprived of the truth, being deprived of that connectedness and that being close to one's Rabb. And it says, what a miserable abode. وَبِئْسَ الْمِهَادِ مَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ وَبِئْسَ الْمِهَادِ. Astaghfirullah. May Allah make us of those who respond to our Rabb and live with this truth. May we read all these ayat for ourselves and realize that this is Allah is speaking to me in this ayat. It's not about some kafir somewhere else. And actually, who is, unless someone tells me I am a kafir, and what's the point in labeling people as kafir? Just be busy with cleansing ourselves, and if we can help others as well. It's like it's like someone, it's a need. So it's like someone is hungry, and if we find some food, some sustenance somewhere, and we are enjoying it, then we start looking around and we want to share it with others, inshallah. نستغفر الله نستغفر الله نستغفر الله العظيم الكريم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ونتوب إليه سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الحمد لله الحمد لله. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Yamina, for this beautiful discourse. And inshallah, then we'll end it here.
Jazakumullah kulla khair, mashallah. And always a beautiful place to stop and a beautiful reflection. So we have a homework, inshallah. And the homework is to bring in at the beginning of next class, how did these verses that we have shared, how did we connect with them throughout the week? When did they come into play? When were the times that we felt that, that we could see the meaning of them? And I will just add one little thing. The only way for us to bring us to see the meaning of these ayahs, the only way for us to realize that God is the continuous source, the only way for us to have 100% tawheed is to do what we are asked to do the first pillar of Islam, to witness, to be active witnessers who are witnessing all the time things coming into existence, things coming from God, to do this active witnessing which Prophet Ibrahim did, which was his way to realize that God does not go away. God is always in charge. God takes care of everything. And the more we witness, the more we are held, our hearts are held. And the more we stop witnessing, the more it's easy for us. Like as if for me, the witnessing is what anchors. And without witnessing, we become this like bubbles on the top that just go away meaningless. And the more we witness, the more we have that trust. And the more that trust is something that we have seen with our own eyes, we don't want someone to tell us about, we can even start telling about it. And that, inshallah, can hold us together. May Allah make us all from those who witness His ayahs and understand them and internalize them. May Allah not make us from those when those who are stubborn and do not want to take in these ayahs. May Allah make us benefit from this Quran and teach us what benefits us. Ameen. Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina.